Unranked is making its triumphant return to Rainbow Six Siege with the Siege X update on June 10th. So in today's video, we'll go over what is Unranked and what we're losing to gain it, because we are losing a playlist to gain Unranked back in. So we'll go over what we're losing and gaining. And also, Unranked is not the same as it previously was. We are getting a different version, which will have some different quirks compared to the previous Unranked. So first of all, a quick history lesson. When Rainbow Six Siege launched, and for many years, there was no Unranked. It got added into the playlist later on because people wanted a competitive playlist like Ranked, but just where they could be a bit more casual. And that was the birth of Unranked. And it was actually Operation Ember Rise that brought us Unranked in year 4 of Rainbow Six Siege. Then it got removed and replaced with Standard just over a year and a half ago. But of course, people don't seem to have been particularly happy with that, and Unranked is now making its comeback. So how will this new Unranked work? Well, it'll be a copy of the Ranked playlist. That means when you queue into it, you get your map bands like you do in Ranked, you then get your picking bands, and then you play your game, and your game can also go into overtime and stuff like that, whereas Standard doesn't have those things. But the pick and ban system is changing with Siege X, so it will not be the same as the old unranked system it used to have, because the pick and ban, of course, has been updated. That means that every round, an operator from each team can be banned, with a total of 6 being banned in the entire game, with that being 1 operator ban per round. But when you switch teams, so you're playing as defender for the first 3 rounds and you switch to attackers, those bans are actually removed and you start with new bans every round from there. I've got a dedicated video on it if you want to see more about the new pick and ban system. I'll also mention how the skill-based matchmaking works in Unranked as well, because some people may think that, oh, it must just use the ranked skill-based matchmaking in order to match you with players, but it doesn't. It actually has its own separate matchmaking behind the scenes that is, again, skill-based just like the current system, but you just don't see what's going up. So think of yourself actually going up and down in ranks as you play, you just don't see it. Same with Quick Match, it has its own independent skill-based matchmaking going on behind the scenes just for that playlist as well. Because of course, in all these different playlists, people play differently. So of course, how you play in Quick Match might be entirely different how you play in Ranked, and even Unranked and Ranked can be played very differently from each other, requiring different skill ratings for each playlist. And we've talked about how the skill-based matchmaking works in Siege. It is just wins and losses on you go up in skill if you win, you go down in skill if you lose, and then there's a fancy calculation that figures out if you should go up or down in skill rating, big or small, because if you're up against a really high skilled team and you lose, the system's like, oh yeah, we were expecting you to lose, so fine. But if you defeat that high skilled team, the system goes, oh, you were actually better than we expected, so your skill rating goes up quicker. And of course, don't get that confused with your ranked points that you see in ranked, because that's not your skill rating. Anyway, moving on from that, we are losing something here, and that is standard. So the standard playlist will be going away and being deleted. And this is a little bit of an issue because, of course, for the last year and a half, if you're a brand new player who's joined in that period, you have probably played mostly standard. There's a good chance that has been your go-to game mode to play normal Rainbow Six Siege. And of course, it's called standard, so you consider it to be the standard, and it's just going to be gone. So for those players, it's going to be quite an adjustment. But us veterans, of course, we've seen playlists disappear and appear throughout the game's history, so it's not a big issue. And of course, it'll just be a little speed bump on the way there. But it won't all be plain sailing. So first of all, the unranked games will take longer. If you like the length of the standard games, then the unranked ones are just going to be a bit more drawn out. And of course, the map selection is far smaller as well, because it is just a map selection from Ranked that's being mirrored over, giving you less variety to play. And then that means if you want something with more variety with map selection and quicker games, then you're going to have to go to Quick Match, which of course already has your setups pre-done, so you can't do the more tactical stuff you might want to do in standard, and that leaves you with just simply unranked to jump into. But hopefully this will be a good choice overall, and the majority of players will end up enjoying this more than standard, but we'll have to, of course, wait and see how players react. And at this point, guys, I'd love to hear in the comments below if you're going to be an unranked player, or are you going to mourn the loss of standard? And that now brings us to the conclusion. So Siege X is bringing us a lot with the update on June 10th, with the main one being a brand new playlist. And of course, it's not unranked, it's actually the new one called Dual Front. And this will be potentially the introductory game mode that a lot of brand new players from now on will use, and might honestly end up becoming the standard experience that brand new players enjoy when they're first starting to play Rainbow Six Siege. But for those players who want to upgrade from that experience and go to the kind of traditional 5v5 attacker defender roles, then they can go over to Unranked. It'll have a limited pool of maps, so a little bit easier to learn, and it'll then give them the way into Ranked, which is probably pretty good. The only problem is, of course, the name of it might actually turn those new players off, and they'll just go to Quick Match instead, and they'll have a way bigger selection of maps to actually learn in there than Unranked. And then for veteran players, I think it's good to have the more competitive playlist, but it is a downside because, of course, you've got your map bans, you've got your picking ban, all that slows things down. You've got a smaller selection of maps. There'll always be some maps that just get banned all the time in that playlist, and you'll never be able to play them. So there is a lack of variety, but of course, some players might actually love that. And of course, it's also the perfect way to just actually warm up for ranked. You can go into unranked, you get into that zone, and then switch over to ranked in a more seamless fashion. And that is probably the major advantage to this playlist. It just gets you in and warmed up and right into the action without having to skip a beat once you're up to speed. And I doubt we'll see any major problems with this change. It'll just be a kind of speed bump that people will get very used to quite quickly. But that is the return of Unranked. It's coming with Siege X on June 10th. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.